Today I'm going to do something a wee bit different and show you the planning stages of a video I'm going to do for AO, Athletes Only. Worked with him for ages, worked with Stuart for a long time, he's family, and I've done lots of videos for him. Most of the time it's live event stuff where I'll be there on the day and grab shots of the classes as they're going on, put stuff together in the edit and send them out just to keep the feed going, a sort of retainer package that we have. But this one I want to do more directed and be more concept driven. And there's a few reasons for that. One, as much as I do like the live event stuff, it's more satisfying to me to plan things out and have a sort of story in mind and plan your shots and see if it works and set up lights, be more particular. Even though there's a lot of satisfaction in finding things in the edit and little surprises here and there, you're always sort of, the motivation is being in the right place at the right time. And that's great training, as I said, but for this I want something more directed, for a few reasons. One, my own satisfaction. Two, I think it'd be good for the business because moved into a new facility, the clothing's great, he's always got new pieces coming out. There's new hot and cold suites there, recovery suites. There's a lot about the gym and a lot about the sort of concept that we did touch on a launch that he did when I mixed 3D elements, and we worked with a group of clients and a group of people that attend the gym, and we were able to put them in certain shots and setups and lighting setups. That was great. I wanted to do something else like that, but with everything I've learned since doing that, and also in the new gym. So the idea is I'm going to really just take you through, for your sake and also for mine, for anyone's interested in this sort of thing. Most of the work that I do, and I see a lot of other people doing, is that you turn up, pick a good shot, stand in the right place. You might have lights with you, you might not. Really just put it together in the edit and see what you get. That's cool, but I want to do something that's more along the lines of what Nike do and all these other cool brands do when they mix 3D, lighting setups, a sort of story, a concept, and there's some real thought going into the process, and that's my goal with this. So really just to kind of show it, what's and all, and see what you think about it. And really it's for me to look back on and see where I could have improved on, what my thought process was in certain shots, and really just see what the journey is and creatively where it could be improved. Now, I'm tight for time. I've got 20 minutes for me to pick my daughter up. I've had a think about this before, but really I'm just going to kind of talk it through. I might cut bits of this, I might just play it through and let you see all the kind of misdirections, dead ends and stuff like that. But really the goal is, say 20 minutes, I'm going to try and plan out this full ad. As I said, got some ideas already, but I'll try and talk them through and not feel insane doing this to a camera. So my coffee, where is it? I have a coffee here, hold on. There it's there. Okay, right, so I'll be rolling, yes we are, okay. Now, AO, what comes to my mind when I think about AO as the brand? Now, it's a really hard working gym, it's a functional fitness gym, everyone's a unit inside, really hard work goes on. I see chalk on the hands, in the atmosphere, flesh, sweat, the black and the white of the brand colours, but also the sort of art direction of the set we'll be using, which will be the gym. There's a few things I want to try out. So I want to do a camera rig on Stuart's truck, on his truck, because it's quite interesting, like an American truck, it's got a flatbed at the back. Maybe having the camera outside, pink skies, hopefully, because we're coming into spring now, so hopefully get some better weather, some clear mornings or clear evenings. Pink skies, showing the truck on this fixed rig. It's quite interesting doing that rather than following slowly behind the camera. There's something different about having it fixed and you're moving with the camera. There's a different effect to it. So I've got that. I've got an old car rig that I've barely used. I got it years and years ago, used it a couple of times for a few tests. I've not really put it to good use. Black Magic's maybe a wee bit too heavy for it, but I could use the Lumix, stick it on a wide lens and get a good shot of the car coming into the gym perhaps. And I also would like to do one of the camera inside the truck underneath this shutter that's got going over the top, maybe having a small light inside showing off like the AO boxes or the AO like little logo bags that they've got, and just seeing that and just kind of atmospheric, showing it rumbling as it goes over the road coming into the industrial estate, mixing that with the two. But that won't be my opening shot. So camera outside, pink skies, camera inside, AO bag. Now I say that's not going to be my opening shot because I already had something quite strong in mind, and we'll see how that works. I don't really think in terms of graphically, I'm not a great drawer. I tried to improve upon it. I do really figure it out on the day, but I like to think of the shot, I'll shot list more than I'll storyboard. I do bits of storyboard. I'm not a great drawer, but I'm better at thinking what's the shot, and then I can make it work as I look at it through the camera lens. So my idea for the opening shot would be something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I think it fits this video. And it's the shot, it's just a still picture. It's Michael Jordan with all these microphones in front of him for an interview. And what's great about it is just the volume of microphones, his sort of like stoic expression. It's iconic, this shot, but also it's like these leading lines, the chaos going into this, like who are we looking at? This number one, this one person, this is who we're looking at, someone to be paying attention to, the lines of the mics all under him. And I thought it was quite good because it's chaotic, but yet it's like showing you to this one person, so it's simple, but there's a bit of chaos involved. And my idea was to, opening shot, was to have Stu, training is what my first impression was, my first instinct, was training, maybe get a bit of sweat going, maybe a bit like kind of puffed out, exhausted, and to have the camera come in quickly, quick push in, almost sloppy, you might say, not this perfectly smooth like gimbal or even on my dolly. Maybe use a dolly for that because I can still make it work on a longer lens, but having this sort of like push in, Stuart standing there, but around him for the leading lines, not having the microphone, we'll have one mic, but having leading lines of, we'll stop writing this down because it's just slowing me down, it's not very interesting for you, having the leading lines of equipment, my equipment, having, there's a tube light above me, having C-stands on the arms pointing towards him, having some soft boxes, having all bits of equipment all pointing towards him in the middle, showing this behind the scenes almost of him, a very posed situation, even though he's not acknowledging as if he's in the middle of a session. This quick push in, because I think it's quite jarring just having this movement, a person in the middle, and having all the equipment pointing towards him as if, like, what's this set up for? This big open environment, and having all this tech surrounding him. And the idea would be, this is the kind of concept I've got for the video, is either me or having some sort of voice being like, what does it take to run a gym? Or what does it take to run a gym? Or what goes into running a business is probably more appropriate. And the reason the second one's probably more appropriate, what goes into running a business, because it's multifaceted. You've got the clothing brand, you've got the classes that he runs and he participates in, scheduling for that. You've got the recovery suites, you've got the marketing side of thing, which is another reason why I'm showing the equipment, because it's almost like this is modern ownership. If you want to be a business owner, unless you silver spoon or you've got a C-suite and you've got heads of department and all that, which is very rare. I only know one person like that, Luke, who can really take a step back and he can say, right, you're my head of this, you're my head of that, I'm not dealing with that, I'm focusing on this. Unless you've got that, this is the modern business owner, is you're doing the marketing, you're doing the work that actually pays the bills, you're doing the outreach, you're like keeping morale up, you're keeping customers happy, you're trying to grow the business, maintain the business. That's another thing that comes into this. It's not just growth, it's like every time you grow, it's like, oh, maybe this isn't working, that's not working. So there's like a kind of stretching and contracting and all these interesting things. This might not even sink in for the audience, or even for them to explain it to you. It might make no sense, the correlation between the imagery I've got and what will come off when I show it to you. But I think it's interesting. This is why I want to do more things like this, to see if what I'm intending, what my intentions are, will resonate, am I communicating them well enough to have this deeper meaning? And I do think, as much as it might not be clear exactly what I'm trying to say, beneath the bottom of the iceberg, the sort of thing that I'm not showing you, but you should feel because my intention's there, that should resonate in some sort of level. Let me check my time. Cool, got another 10 minutes, drink a coffee. So that's the idea, having this opening shot, and really, and I think it's quite good having this sort of meta version of it, where it's behind the scenes. It's supposed to be he's mid-set or something like that, he's mid working out, but it's very obvious that this is planned and posed, and it's something I played about with on the Loki video that I did for his tour, and it was something he was big on, this Charlie Kaufman side of it, the adaptation, and that was his idea and that's what he brought to it, but it's something I really like and I've been thinking about this for a while. So showing this behind the scenes thing, what does it take to run a business, having him just staring down the lens, no response to it, but then what we'll then break it up with is a series of shots. That's when the truck might come into the shot I was talking about, and really when I say that's something I want to use, that doesn't mean that's set in stone. That's just something I'd like to play about with. Does it fit for this? If it doesn't, and it doesn't fit the tone of the piece or the movement, then I'll cut it out. It's like no love lost there. But I do think it's interesting trying to play with it and having these ideas and having different ways where you can explore things and maybe try new things out when there's not a huge... The stakes aren't massive on this. That's the great thing about Stuart and AO and the relationship that we've got. He trusts me enough that I won't let him down when it comes to the quality of the work and all these other things, and he kind of leaves me to it in that respect. So as I said before, maybe not everyone has that where you can delegate and say, right, you deal with that and I'll sort it later. Stuart to an extent does have that because he's hired me and I do deal with a lot of that, but we've got similar tastes. He'll leave me to, and it lets me explore different things, and if it's good for the business and it lets me, you know, scratch an itch, then it works for both of us, and that's all can only be a good thing. So yeah, that shot might not be in there, but then what we break it down into is me asking questions, maybe an interview setup that we've also done before with Stuart that worked really well, and maybe it's like a half-hour setup, and I've got various questions, and then we only use clips of Stuart's response that's appropriate for the visuals. So maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like, I think he's in his 40s, Stuart. I'm 40 odd. Why is health so important? Why is fitness? Maybe a no-brainer for a gym, but you'd be surprised. But also, really, what does that mean? So the fitness side of things, why does he stay in such good shape? Why is he participating in every class? And he's not just like this guy who's like, right, one gym, onto the franchise. Like, there's something he loves about participating, leading the charge, and also throw back to Michael Jordan, but he wouldn't ask them to do anything, his clients, the people he trains with, that he wouldn't do himself. Like a great leader, something like that. Then having that voiceover, just a very short couple of sentences over him training, hitting the treadmill, doing cleans, pose shots, then having things like staying on top of the clothing side of things. Then we'd have like concepts of all these designs he's had, these great AO skullduggery logos, and the AO, the kind of minimalist side, and maybe him looking over this desk full of like almost like fashion clip outs as if, right, we'll try that this time, but these colour combinations work. Just very quick, just going over this table spread out, showing how involved it is doing this kind of work. And then it'd be something along the lines of, planning out the timetable, planning out schedule. They're posting up, what's the workout today? It's not just the same thing they do every time. It's like, what's the thought process behind that? Then there's like the research part of things, staying on top of your game. Then it's like the recovery side and having a place to come, and then maybe focus on the expansion. So the idea is I'm going to be feeding all these questions about things that I think would make great answers, because I know if I give him a chance to wax lyrical on that, he'll give me great answers and I can use that as the voiceover. But it's not this like, to be a business owner, you have to be want it more than you can breathe. You have to, all this like shit we've heard 1,000 times and doesn't resonate with me. I want things that are going to be very direct answers that are things he does on a day-to-day basis, but they're directed. This has been structured in a way that's not exactly how it is. Like he won't sit in the middle of the gym floor with all these things spread out when he's planning his clothing brand. He'd probably be on his laptop somewhere, or a computer, or on the move, or it's in his head all the time. But we're going to have a visual representation of that and make it sort of not a metaphor, but just having this very strong image to relate to all the different parts that go into running a business. So that's the idea. It's going to be all these different images. And then the message is what goes into running a business, showing how involved it is, the training, the clothing side, the recovery suite, the commuting, just going back and forth, picking things up, dealing with going from the clothing to the delivery side, to meeting clients, letting clients in, staying on top of all your communications, all these things, the sort of chaos involved, but in the end, being like, you would never choose another path. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I do, and I've not been self-employed for too long, but as much as it's terrifying, and it's a lot of hard work and it's long hours and all the rest of it, once you're kind of in that, you think, I can never go back to doing what your old life would be, or whatever, being employed or whatever. You mean, just once you've got a taste for that, and if that suits your personality, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but that suits your personality, then you never go back. So that's the point I want to make. It's an old style Nike advert, but with a modern twist. Now, in terms of imagery, I do have things I'd like to try. I'd like to really get some dark shots. There's skylights in the gym, so we need to wait for it to be dark, and this is a good time of year to do it because it's getting brighter, but it's not too late before it's absolutely dark. And I want to set up some lights. I'd like to have, for the training side of things, having these the treadmill shot maybe in the middle of this huge, because the gym's massive, this big warehouse, this black space where it almost like I'll light Stuart but stop down quite hard, and then have the just falling off into blackness behind them, we can play a bit about with that in post and try different things so it really does fall off and you don't see anything in the background. As if he's running in the middle of nothing and just having it pounding the treadmill, getting some close-ups, maybe having some sky replacement in the background, create this epic sense of what it is. Because to me, as much as the gym is, like I said, hard work, the chalk in the atmosphere, all these different elements that go into running the business and that make it sort of old school in a sense, there's an interesting contrast because Stuart's really well educated. These plans and everything he puts together, they're very well thought out. We've got the recovery suite, we've got the new modern venue, the new gym. Everything's sort of set up, the recovery suites, as I said, and there's all these things are very modern, clashing with that old school work ethic. So it's like very hard working, but also it's not stupid. It's not like not the West Side Barbell or anything like that stupid, but it's not like a meathead gym as such. It's like a great mix of people, and it's trying to show that contrast and showing also the level of thought that goes into this. This is a new day for business owners and people like Stuart. I'm not saying that there's many of Stuart, but there's a lot of people who are picking up multiple jobs within their business and they're doing all these things. One, because they like to do it, and like Stuart's done quite a lot with clothing before, so he wants to reach off and do these areas, but also it's like a necessity now. It's like to survive and really create that community, which he has, which is something else we want to touch on in the video. There's a lot of things that need to go and be involved in that, so that's something I want to capture. But I've got certain images. I'm going to put together some inspiration that I've found elsewhere, things that I've saved like on Instagram and seen other ads, combine that with the theme of the piece, see if that works, trying out different rigs, trying out movements, lighting setups, and really trying to pull together the theme. It might be all sound design, it might be some music involved, it might just be the voiceover and very subtle sound design. I don't know that part yet. Some things will get figured out in the edit as I go, but I'm going to basically put together my short list of things that I would like to have. Does it work in the story? Where does it go in the story? My questions, and then I'll post that to Stuart, see what he thinks. We're going to shoot on Tuesday, and then we'll basically go from there. But that's the idea, and I hope that's touched on what I said I was going to touch on. I'm not going to sit and storyboard the full thing again because I'm not a great drawer, but I do have certain images. Maybe I'll go through that and see if that. Let's see if I actually use the things that I've got in my head right now. The opening one I think is pretty strong. It's a good hook in terms of like we're pushing in this kind of chaotic push in. With all the equipment, the leading lines, as I said, the Michael Jordan reference, but then having this question post him and then going straight into, I want to get almost Stuart sitting in the middle of the gym, again that total blackness like I said with the treadmill, maybe having him on the laptop, having a kind of hologram, but like the screen, have it going by, like all of his designs and stuff, things he's sending off, maybe his communications, his email, and over the top of that would be, you need to stay on top of communication, you have to be doing this and that. Stuart's answers, designs, it's trial and error, and these are things that I've been inspired by, and we're trying to do this, and what it means to the club, and what the club's sort of like culture is, and how that reflects in the clothing side of things. And then having the training side about what it means to stay in shape, having that treadmill shot in the big empty gym, it's a nice contrast. There's training alone, the sort of loneliness of it, the focus of it, this total blackness, the silence, just the sound of the treadmill hitting, and having this isolation with the total blackness, the lights hitting the treadmill, training yourself, lifting yourself, and playing about with that. Then there's another thing I want to touch on as well. Just check my still rolling there. It's about momentum, tempo, rhythm. If you've got music, first of all, that's a good thing. But for this, I don't have any music in mind. I might have a wee look about and see if anything resonates. But my first instinct for this is it will be some music. Maybe I'll clip together a few different tracks, but it's going to be mostly sound design and Stuart speaking and playing about with that. I see a kind of a lot of slow motion mixing with other things, but that's something I want to speak about. It's not just constant momentum, thinking about tempo, thinking about where does it rise, where does it fall. So we're going to go this big push in as if like the Goodfellas, like for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. That's the push in, freeze frame, and then into the sort of like ups. So there's a momentum of that, like starting off with chaos, and then going into perhaps a wee bit quick cuts, showing things off, then slowing down. So that's really what to think about. It's not all just like have to keep it quick. Sometimes it will slow down. Maybe we'll even use just interview setup, where when I'm sitting talking to Stuart, asking the questions I'll use for the voiceover, I'll set up a nice lighting setup, or I might set up a really harsh lighting setup to contrast the sort of more polished work we're doing, to contrast with the gym's modernity, but also the kind of old school work ethic, show a bit of that harshness. I might have like a tube light above Stuart blaring down, unflattening light, to contrast with the sort of more polished work that we're doing. So really it's thinking about tempo, it's thinking about contrasting images, colour, lighting, and also thinking about what's the core of the story, does it fit that? And that's really what it's about. And that's the reason I want to do more things like this, because as I said before, the narrative side of things is what I'm most interested in. But what I want to do is build the business up, build the page up, and do more of this for more people, because I think that a lot of things can be covered with your phone and just keeping people up to date and having, right, here's us today. If you're own a restaurant, for example, here's the specials, or here's what our chef has to say about this, right? That stuff's good. But see if you're going to do something special or really want to pull people in for your business, like say you've got a big launch, a new product, or something just a wee bit different that's a big bit of an event, like we want to do here. Not that we're launching anything at all, but I really want to do it to touch on the new gym and touch on all the things that are available now and the clothing. If you've got something like that, it's good to plan it out and really have a structure to it, not just be, right, turn up, see what we can do on the day, and then we'll take it from there. So I want to do something that's planned, shortlisted, see what I get out of it, see if it works, see if it resonates with people that wee bit different, that's not just found footage or fly in the wall style, which I do like, but for this, we're doing something a bit different. That's the real idea here. My own satisfaction, first and foremost, sorry to be selfish. How does it benefit the gym, which is also very high, because I think it'd be something really good and different. I want to mix some 3D elements with it, really keep that muscle flexed and see what I can do. If it works for the piece, it might not work, but really try and dig down. What's the brand about? How can we make it special? How can we break the patterns of people scrolling? All these other things, and just really test it out. Do my ideas resonate? What did we do right? Was my time used effectively? Did it represent the gym well? Did Stuart like it? All these questions I want to answer, and I really want to just kind of, I want to be drained by the end of it. Not exhausted, but I just want to be like, right, let's use all this energy, let's plan shots, this would be cool, really get it out of my system for this one time, and then do it again and improve upon it. So that's the goal. The footage, I think, will be shot on Tuesday during the day and at night, and then we'll take it from there, and the video will probably be out in the next week or so. But that's the idea, and I hope this wasn't just me blethering for too long and it made sense and my mind wasn't jumping about too much, but that's the idea, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so this is the storyboard that I put together just after that little sit down. This is really just for my benefit as well as Stuart's, but really just giving an outline of what I had in mind, giving my concept of the amount of shots and time and how it might look. But really it's for my benefit, for a wee game plan, and really just to remind myself of the vision and things that inspire me. So starting off with the front page, and then we go into our opening shot. As I said, we've got the Michael Jordan here, and there's a bit of text that says rapid push in, Stu mid-workout, surrounded by film equipment, lights and stands. Leading lines like the mics in the MJ pick with all the equipment leading to Stu. Caption appears or voice asks, what does it take to run a business? Stu pauses, then pushes camera away, and it whips away quickly / blurry transition. So really just a really quick opening, all the lines going to our leading character, which is Stu, and that's pretty much as I said in the sit down there, but that is the visual for that. And then second one, what I had is going from this really rushed quick push in, quite chaotic, to this almost peaceful static shot, industrial, that matches the look of the gym, the theme of the gym, the kind of exposed brick, the metal bars, the chalk, the hard work, the sort of classic work ethic. That's something I think works really well. This will be the 3D element. This is just taken from inspo. All these things are just folders I've had for ages on Instagram that I kind of keep for inspiration, and I thought it'd be nice to try and replicate, and I thought it would fit the piece really well. But this is for one of the shots, just to go from that chaotic opening to a bit of peace. I imagine it's slowing down a bit here. As you can see, there's a figure up the top there jumping. I think maybe doing something like that, or even that, or just a static shot, just something peaceful. A moody sky, black and white, really giving a nice bit of contrast, so it's not just bang, 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 constant chaos, a bit of peace, giving a chance for the voiceover to settle. And the text here, 3D industrial, moody environment, dramatic sky, Stu jumping in slow motion as his voiceover plays. Stu touches on how overwhelming the process of owning a business can be. So really it's that isolation, that feeling of being just tiny in amongst this massive and industrial scale that's much bigger than you, and it's quite hard to control. That's the idea behind that. Then for the third one, this was something I pulled from, I think it's a Netflix doc about, it's a deaf show, I think. I've just seen it on the cinematography Reddit, and I really liked the tube light and the sort of behind the scenes setup. And it's funny because a lot of time you're seeing in these reels now, or I am at least, and I kind of find it myself, it's a lot more interesting seeing almost behind the curtain, showing the setup and showing the rig and what goes into lighting a shot rather than the shot. Because I think a lot of the time good cinematographers like Deacons and people like this, they can make it look like nothing's been lit. But sometimes it can be really interesting to see, oh, look at all that. Like, there's a lot going on there. There's the stands pointing in all directions. There's the shotgun mic right above the subject, the big open space, the blue light. This is not just somebody speaking that we see every day. This is really a professional setup. As basic as that sounds, it's quite good to show that and show the sort of the artifice of it, which is something we touched on in the Loki video, as I said. But that was something that's an inspiration there, just showing the light, showing the setup, showing how it may look. And then this is another piece that I quite like, actually I really like, and it's this grainy sort of a bit of halation bloom here, really sort of like pushing the film look. And it's really just a mixture of, again, things I found on Instagram, but something I'd like to put together. This is the kind of fitness aspect, Stu staying in shape, because that's a big part of his job. It's his full business, and that'll be used in that section of the voiceover about keeping the body right, keeping the mind right. And this is just something I really like, that sort of like really stripped back, mixing the naturalism of people working out, because you know, they're not posted. If you're running, you're really running. You know, there's only so many ways you can pose, or there's only so long you can hold a sort of perfect version of that. So having the spotlight here again, the bloom, the grain, pushing that, really pushing the stylized version of that. Again, you'll see down here in the sort of bottom right clip, it's the kind of moody sky, maybe matching the industrial 3D environment that we're going to build. But again, that's just another part of the setup. And then this is from Ivan the Terrible, which is a bit left field, but it's an old Russian film. Eisenstein directed this, Ivan the Terrible Part 1, and it's just forced perspective of having this massive figure in the foreground and then having this like army of people in the background, the chaos behind it. I just really love that kind of forced perspective, something I'd like to play upon with Stuart in front of a green screen, and having maybe the classes and stuff play behind them. Next setup is just really the sort of day-to-day, the sketching, the design aspect, having overlays of the AO clothing side and amongst everything. Very basic, but just kind of showing the kind of overlays and sketches and stuff like that. Then we've got this little shot. It's just to really cut up amongst all the static shots and maybe the slightly slower shots, having a fixed rig, having a super clamp on a plate and a camera, the Lumix fixed to that. And it's really nice just how when the plate moves, the camera is exactly on it. As I said, with the car rig, it's a similar idea here. And then this one is just a really nice one. This one I do remember. This is Andy Woodward, who's a really great filmmaker. This is from a surf ad he did, but this is really just showing the isolation of having this almost like miniature and amongst this wide open space, having a bedroom in a space like this, or having an office in a space like this, just showing something a wee bit different, just the contrast between open space but a kind of normal environment. You might see the contrast of colour and just the sort of atmosphere it's setting, something I'm kind of inspired by, maybe for the AO clothing side or maybe for just the interview side perhaps, I don't know yet. And this one is for the recovery side, pretty basic, but it's the red light mixing with the blue. I don't think we'll do the cold plunge. It's a slightly smaller space that we've got, so we're kind of limited for lighting and reflections and all these other things. But I just really want to kind of touch upon, show the recovery suites and show what they can do, and showing what's on offer really there. It's a kind of advertisement for the gym, but it's also showing the story about this kind of take a minute, take a breath and relax. And that's just a couple of frames that I like. And then we've got this, which is really just showing Dory. I think this was for On Running. I can't remember who shot this, but it's the kind of running track. It's kind of a ethereal, kind of mystical vibe to it. It's like the glowing light and amongst this dark running track that's lighting the subject there, maybe having the AO sign doing that, or it could just be a spotlight on Stu in the gym, the kind of really moody atmospheric vibe again that I feel like I'm going for. But it's a nice mix, and you can see here it looks like this kind of chalk or mist in the environment there, kind of replicating that with a bit of my fog machine to give a light shaft, and really just see what I think on the day. And then moving on to the final shot is the car rig that I mentioned, and that is really just what I spoke about, pink skies fixed to the car, maybe having some inside the truck. But that's it really for the storyboards, and that's going to keep me right on the day. And then we shall move on to the actual production side, which was my Meta Ray-Bans again. So here you'll see me driving to the gym, getting all my equipment in. There must be an easy way to do this. There must be some way I can get all this without having a massive van and having to hire loads of people to help me, but it's an absolute shift getting all this gear in. But there's only one way to do it and to get set up, and this is what I'm doing here, setting up my dolly tracks, setting up all the light stands and the lights and little bits and bobs that are going to make my leading lines, the kind of small lights that I've got, everything just to kind of direct towards Stuart and get that opening shot, the MJ inspired shot that we spoke about. And this is a big reflector I'm shooting up. I'm going to use the diffuser side of that to get a nice soft light on Stuart for the interview side, which is actually what we're doing here, and that's what's going to be for the questions that we're doing, and that's me just getting it behind the scenes so we can use it for other content and we can get it hyped up a bit and show what we're doing on the day. And this is me just doing the dolly shot for that very opening shot of the sort of MJ one. We're testing some things out, testing out camera moves. What do we like? I liked going from the ceiling onto Stu because it kind of has that chaotic effect where you're getting the lights passing by overhead and landing on Stu. This is me setting up the green screen, which is going to be for the big industrial 3D side of things, the blue screen, giving Stu some direction here, setting up on the floor, shooting up at an upward angle, blue screen behind him, well lit, on top of one of the boxes, looking out in the distance, really just taking him into himself. And then this is the environment that I built within Blender, just really basic, lots of crates, crane in the background, and I could do a sky replacement after that. Now here I am checking in with my references to see what we're going to do next and get a wee reminder. And this is doing the plate shot. There's a super clamp beneath the Lumix, and then I'm just showing Stuart how I would like him to lift it up to get a shot of him, but then have this whooshy movement in the background as he gets up and turns and shows the maintenance side of the story. And then this is us doing some of the darker, moodier shots. He didn't have a treadmill, that's now gone, so we used the bike, and we're getting just this sort of isolated, in the dark, well lit, moody kind of atmosphere to show him keeping in shape and doing his thing. And then this is a shot that we didn't use. This is the fixed camera on top of the bike, and it just didn't really work well. It worked well if the bike was outside and we had movement behind him. Because it was a static shot, I just didn't like it, so we cut that. But it was just something to try on the day, didn't take up too much time. And this is the jumping shot that we're shooting in slow motion, and we are really just getting, again, the kind of isolated, well lit, moody, kind of atmospheric, staying in shape, sort of dynamic movement to mix up with the interview, very static shots. And this is me sticking a spotlight attachment on top of my Amaran 300C, and this is because we're going to do some of the more kind of spotlighty ones, the on-running style that I liked with the kind of glowing doorway. But this is just going to be a spotlight on one of the boxes of Stu, either just after finishing a workout or catching his breath. But first I have to fog the place out, huge space, had to do this quite a few times, and as you'll see here, I gave it a couple of goes, but it ended up working out really well, and we got that shaft of light that we wanted. And then the final shot we moved on to was the recovery suites, and we could change the colours to whatever we wanted. So I ended up, we had it on red, but I made the sauna blue and then played around with my own setup to make it red, just to give a bit of contrast with the blue lights inside and having the red outside, just to give it something a wee bit more interesting than just all red. But I had to watch out for reflections. You can see it's quite a tight space. You've got the cold plunges there, but I wanted to get Stu, just, he's the main focus of the film, so I wanted to keep it on him, not just show the space, but do a bit of both. And here I'm just trying to bounce the light, get it filled up with that red light without being too direct, because I have to get in the other way, because I'm shooting front on, it'll be very flat looking. And I'm just trying to avoid reflections for myself and reflections for the spotlight, and then giving Stu a bit of direction about what I think it should be. He should be, you know, deep in thought, or either just de-stressing, decompressing, and that's something I think we can use, and it'll work really well in nice contrast to the other more monochrome scenes. And then this is the video.
It's like being smothered today and not knowing if you're going to still be here next month. Doubts every day. How can I fix this? 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 What the fuck am I doing? Is what I'm doing worth fucking graft that you need to do to make it work? Clear one job, we've got 4 more to do. And you just think, what's the point? Prove people wrong. Fear of being as poor as I was growing up, and I never want to go back to that. So that's always that's a driver for me. There isn't a switch off. And you're never present, you're always like thinking about the next thing. You're not living now. Is the madness worth it? 100%. Does it fucking piss me off? Daily. Do people piss me off? Daily. But I wouldn't have it in another day now, no way. I'm unemployable.
Okay, so that was the video, and that's what we ended up with. So maybe the best thing to do is just to kind of talk about what we kept, what we changed, why, the final tone of the piece. Was it successful? Was it what we thought we were going to get when we started? I think by and large it was. I think we kept a lot of the main things, the reason or the mood, the atmosphere, the ideas that I really wanted from the initial concept stage. A lot of it stayed, and then we just kind of whittled away the stuff that we didn't need. Originally, I thought we were going to touch on every aspect and maybe say, we're doing the fitness side. We asked all these questions at the time. I went through, it was about a half-hour sit-down with Stuart, gave lots of great answers, but I ended up shaping it a lot differently. And it was something I really discovered in that stage, was how much I like reshaping things and really going in with the concept, probing people for answers I know they'll give, and kind of leading them down to give me answers that I'm setting up, really, kind of planting seeds to kind of leading questions, I suppose, is the terminology you would use. So I kind of set all these things up, and I was able to get great answers, and then reshaping it, reordering things to kind of get a really coherent piece. This ended up about a minute long from a 30-minute sit down and all these different ideas. So of course you're not going to keep everything, and there's lots of great things that might have worked in other areas, but for the ad it didn't work. And finally what it became really for me was capturing the mood of running a business. That was really what I thought worked well, and disregarded everything else, not making it a full ad. Maybe that's a secondary thing that would come from this, showing off all the facilities and showing who Stuart is, and then that is an advert for the gym, but really capturing what it is to own a business, that mindset, the work ethic. Really, it was like a character piece, which I really like, and that's what it eventually came out. As I was shooting, as I was editing, I was like, that's not right, that doesn't feel right. The music, everything shaped that. So I'll go through shot by shot. The opening one with Stuart here, pretty much what we said it was going to be. We thought maybe it'd be working out, but I felt it would work better if we had him staring down the camera, almost like just really setting up our leading character for the piece, looking at the lens and showing what it was going to be. It's him just standing, directing at the audience, and really just laying it all out there, a kind of raw version of what it's really like. And then if we move on to the next shot, he talks about it's like being smothered to death. This is pretty much what we said it was going to be, the kind of industrial 3D environment that I had set up, with AO in the background flashing with that moody kind of stormy sky. And really it was going to have him jumping, but I thought it worked well just to have him standing staring out and having that sort of isolated, maybe even like at sea, or having something that just felt like you're alone in this. And I thought it worked well because I knew that was going to be our opener, that was going to be our opener, the kind of feeling overwhelmed. What is it like? I was like, describe the madness, I think was my question, or describe your worst day. What does that feel like when you feel like you're drowning with, just try and really dig deep into those days that are really, really dark as a business, because I knew I wanted to come back round and be like, is it worth it in the end? So all these things I suppose were there in the beginning, but I found in the edit, but we'd set up and we prepared for, which was great. So that kind of stayed the same. And then we moved on. We didn't have the treadmill, so we had the cycling, which I think still works well. It's just a kind of little piece to show part of his day-to-day, staying in shape, de-stressing, exercise element as part of his business, the isolation, just one bike in the middle of this huge open gym, AO in the background. The black and white I think works really well, the kind of contrasty monochrome works well with the tone of the gym, tone of the piece, kept all that, which I really liked. And I liked pushing that, making it a wee bit noisy, grainy, not having it this very clean version because it didn't fit what we were trying to do. And I liked just to grunge it up a little bit. So then we moved on to just a little cutaway, and what I liked here was in between the how can I fix this, rather than just having one long subtitle saying that, I kind of kept clipping it so it would like flash up little gaps and little kind of repetitions, just to drive home that, going over in your head, how can I fix this, how can I fix this, that sort of like nuisance that keeps flashing up like a notification in your brain, just to kind of keep pushing you, as a lot of people experience owning a business. I imagine I experienced that a lot. And again, just cutting to a kind of alternative angle, pushing in. We did that just at the end of the interview. I just wanted to get this variation that I knew I was only going to use once, and having that close up there, being right in his face, in his space, as he's like panicking, how can I fix this? So I thought that worked well. And then what did we do? Moved to the wide shot, and I love this. This is exactly what I wanted to do with the treadmill stuff, with the tube bulb. You can see around the top here, this reddy orange colour, the halation, even on the 22C on the left hand side here on my grid. You can see that. I just love having that behind the scenes. The sea stand in the background, you know, it's messy, but it's all pointing towards Stuart, and then it's got this kind of beautiful soft lighting on him, which I really like. And I just thought it was great for an interview setup, and I really like this setup actually, and just lighting from both sides, nothing front on, soft roll off. Yeah, I love it, and I love this just kind of dynamic, showing this warm skin tone in amongst all these kind of grungy black and white things that we use. And then we're moving on to this slow motion jumping, and as you can see here, there's a really kind of subtle vibration here with the camera with the slow motion. I thought worked well, just having this really slow moving pace, quite grungy, quite, you know, brightly lit. I pushed it quite hard in the grade rather, but having this sort of vibration, this sort of like subtle menacing movement underneath this kind of slow poetic jump, I thought worked really well. Because I thought it worked. The reason I thought it worked well was just showing that contrast again between staying calm, staying in shape, and also the underlying stress. The vibration is always there about, you know, worry, I suppose, is what that is to me. And these are things I just kind of found that felt right in the edit, but when I'm looking back now, I feel that's what they meant. And then we've got the sauna scene, which I think came out really well. Just showing that sort of red light, the contrast with the red and the blue. He's asking, is it worth it? Hands in his face. These were bits of direction I gave to Stu, but that decompressing at the end of the day, he said he would just sit in the sauna. That's what he said he would do, and I felt that worked really well. Just again with the black and white, having a bit of colour in there, showing off the saunas, but also just kind of showing that recovery side. And really also it worked well, I thought, with the jump. It's a sort of a bit of a match cut because he's like right in line with where he ends up here, which was great in the sauna. And then as we moved on, talking about the graft, and then it's back to the interview setup. We're just showing this in little bits of, in little sections in between, just reminding who we're speaking about, who's speaking to the camera, and going back to that core setup that we had. And then it's the plate shot, which again I feel worked brilliantly, and it gave that kind of different setup to the static shots we've got, or just having these tripod shots, having that bit of movement on a rig, which worked great. And then spinning round, going back to the interview setup. And then we move on again. This is a spotlight shot. I originally had a couple of spotlight shots, but I felt it worked better to hold a longer shot on a wider angle and just really darkening everything up. Again, the isolation here under the spotlight, a bit of atmosphere here. You can see the fog machine's created that light shaft. Spotlight's on you. Again, it's that feeling of when you're running a business as if like you can't escape it. Everything's expected of you because you're the one that's running the show, and it's a lot of pressure on you. Again, what I had Stuart doing here was just taking deep breaths as if he was in the middle of a workout. But again, that could be perceived as stress, it could be perceived as, you know, worry, all these other things that worked both as a gym and a business owner, which I thought was great. And then we're moving on to the next kind of shot. He's looking up at the light here, back to the interview setup. He never wants to go back to that. Really great stuff from Stuart here, really digging deep and laying it out there. And I thought it got received really well when we posted this, just really talking about business. And here we are in the warehouse here, or in the gym rather, showing up at the office, but I really pushed this here. I didn't want it too clean, and I played about with this for a while, but I wanted to push it, make it really grainy and have it like ugly looking, which is mad because you spend all this money on cameras and getting the best sensor, best dynamic range, and then you do stuff like this. But I think it's good because I'm mixing it with like really nice shots with the interview, but having this sort of grungy contrast with the work aspect, the after hours aspect, which I liked, so I just kept it in there. And then we go up to the office, and here we have a bit of overlays, some of the CAD drawings from his designs, and this really chaotic, messy office, which I can really relate to. That's what my workspace looks like a lot of the time. And Stuart's just going over the kind of after hours, doing the work, pushing hard. And then we've got here the Ivan the Terrible shot that I had. I really liked this. Just lit it in a real close-up, had Stuart taking deep breaths, looking up as if in the middle of a workout, but having the chaos from previous videos that we shot in the background on the blue screen. Really clean keen here, which I was really pleased with, and everything came out really well. I made it black and white again because I felt like it worked well. Maybe it was Ivan the Terrible reference in my head, or maybe it was just because it worked with the piece and having the contrast with the sit-down sections. And then moving on, just showing the old video, is it worth it? It pisses me off, as he said. But then cutting to, again, the more sort of behind the scenes element. I had a B camera, my Lumix, showing a wider shot of everything here, just as a little bit of variation to kind of keep it different as we go towards the end, not to make it just this boring way of going out, having it still a bit of variation as we round things up. And then cutting back as he rounds things up. And again, the green sort of green lighting here I pushed slightly just to give a bit of variation as he's closing the shutters, which I loved, and then adding these bits of text in, and then having him laughing and with the logo at the end. And that was it really. But again, I suppose biggest lessons from this, I would say, would be preparation was great. I was really organised. We shot it 2 hours during the day. We did the interview and everything first of all, and then we did all the kind of darker shots, the working out shots, sauna shots at night, again another maybe 2 to 3 hours. So I mean, a really quick shoot for the number of setups that we did and having it kind of stylised. So as far as that goes, everything went well. The planning was essential and really did pay off. And I think it really just taught me a lesson about having the questions prepared, having more than you need, as I've always thought, and then whittling it down in the edit and really shaping that. But I think what it's really teaching me is how much I enjoy the reshaping and really coming up with the story or directing the story through the questions. Maybe not letting the subject know what I have in my mind, but asking these questions and letting them speak, and then consciously pulling out what I think will work and create a new story. It's something they didn't say in that order, but it really is essentially what they meant, and that's the editing side of it, and that's the sort of writer in me, I suppose, that likes to reshape their story but still keep it truthful and not be dishonest, I suppose. But yep, that was a beginning to end, and I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, you know where I am. Thank you.